Okay, everyone. So, good evening to you all. Thank you all for stopping by. My name is Ariel Gonzalez, and I will be your government instructor. Um, I'm teaching both Government 2305 and 2306 this summer semester, so I figured I would just do one meeting for both of them since while the material is not the same, and then obviously, of course, one is going to focus on the federal government, and the other one is going to focus on Texas government. I felt that it would be fine to have one meeting where we just have all the students from all the classes, because this meeting is not really going to be about content, but it's mostly going to be about class layout, class procedures, covering the syllabus in terms of the key points. And I do try to make those two classes as similar as possible, where the assignments are pretty much the same when it comes to like chapter quizzes and discussions. I mean, obviously, of course, the content is going to be a little bit different, like the discussion questions will be different. But in terms of the way I grade it, the types of assignments that I have, both classes have a final project. In federal, there's 3 tests, whereas in Texas, there's 4, but the tests are pretty much the same, 50 questions, multiple choice. So I don't know if that makes sense, that I just wanted to just kind of have it done in a way where I figured we could just have one meeting where we can just kind of knock out like all of those first week questions, those introductory questions and things like that. So that's what I'll definitely um cover right now in terms of getting you all set up so that you all are ready to go. So it's just going to be a lot of housekeeping stuff. So this meeting might last a little bit longer than an hour. If you all need to go, that's fine, like I said, because I'm going to upload this and put this up for everyone to see that wasn't able to make it. And again, and I understand why not too many people are here today, because when you sign up for an online class, there's not an expectation that you're going to meet at a certain time, right? Because like I was saying right now, this is not a online synchronous class, even though I do teach a couple of those in the fall and spring. So because it's online asynchronous, it's, as long as you do your work, by the time the deadlines are, then you're okay, because we don't have those set times. But the reason, like I said, why I wanted to have this meeting is because I've been teaching at STC I'm going to start my 8th year teaching at STC in the fall. And so I've been teaching online for pretty much all of those years. I think 7. I think the first year I wasn't teaching online, but because I need to get certified. But and I also teach at other colleges across Texas as well. I have a lot of teaching experience, not just at STC, but some of these other colleges. But what I've noticed over the years as I've been teaching is that a lot of my online students, they do like these meetings because um, it helps for students to not feel like they are kind of on their own. And I know I can say that for myself, that, in grad school, which I still am in grad school, I'm actually going to be starting my PhD in the fall here. So I do understand what it's like to be a student still. But going back to my point was that that I know what it's like to like be in an online class and kind of feel like you're kind of on your own, like where the professor doesn't even interact with you. It's almost, you almost kind of feel like, well, what do I need the professor for, right? If I'm just kind of doing all this on my own. So I don't want to have my class set up that way. Like, I want to have that interaction. I want to be able to speak with you all and touch base with you all, and answer any questions that you all have and things like that. So that's why I wanted to do this introductory meeting. So that way you all could get a better sense for how the class is set up, what the expectations are. I also understand that every professor is different, right? Like, not every professor is going to have the same type of setup. So I wanted to kind of walk you all through that setup and things like that. So that way everyone is on the same page when it comes to what the class expectations are. And this is especially important in the summer semester. One of my former professors, he retired a couple of years ago. His name is Dr. William Turk. He used to teach political science at UTRGV, and also I took some public administration classes with him. One of my favorite quotes that he used to say in regards to the summer session is, the good thing about summer is that it's 5 weeks long. The bad thing about summer is that it's 5 weeks long. So I always thought that that was so funny, because it's so true, right? Like it's a double-edged sword in the summer, because you're able to get it done quickly, but because how fast it is, it's also very stressful, because it's easy to get behind in a summer class. So that's another reason why I wanted to have this meeting, especially in a summer class, because we have to cover a unit per week, and I understand that that's a lot. I was never really a fan of taking summer classes because of how condensed it is. I certainly wouldn't want to take a summer class and like have to go and like work like in an office. Thankfully I'm teaching online, so I'm here at home and I have more time to be able to like do things and all that stuff. But I understand that a lot of y'all are working, so that's why I wanted to have this meeting so that we could, and also for the students who weren't able to show up. So I know I'm kind of just rambling a little bit. But anyway, I just wanted to give you all a quick introduction in terms of the purpose of the meetings, why we have the meetings, why I want us to have this meeting. And so we'll go ahead and get started here. Now, first off, I guess before we get started, does anyone have any really pressing questions? Um, a few of you all have emailed me and messaged me, so that tells me that that's a good sign, that it's not like the whole system is down and I'm getting like 15, 20 emails like, sir, like I can't log into this, or sir, I can't get this or that. So that says to me that things should be running pretty smoothly. But before we like start and getting into the syllabus and the class layout and all that, does anyone have any like questions? Any questions that I can answer? Or are you fine with just kind of getting started and going through with what we wanted to cover this evening? So no one really has any pressing questions, like any emergency questions, like, sir, the textbook doesn't work, like, which I'll definitely get to that as well here, especially for those of you all in Texas government, because in Texas government, that textbook is only in ebook format. There's no hard copy for it. So for that, you are going to need to go into Cengage and create an account and all that stuff, which I'll walk you through in terms of what that looks like. So, but okay, so if there's no questions, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share the screen, and we're going to get started. First, we're going to get started, or you know what? Let me go first with the messaging protocol issue. Okay, now let me give you all a little bit of background information about that, because I know that some of y'all might be thinking, wow, why is that Mr. Gonzalez so strict about this? Why is he being like rude about like this? Okay, it's not that I'm being rude. It's that, let me explain in greater detail. So I'm not that big of a fan of the Blackboard messaging, especially in the old Blackboard system. The new one is better. But when we used to use the old Blackboard system a couple years ago, I had a lot of issues with Blackboard messages, because I would get, like, students would then tell me, sir, like I send you a Blackboard message, and then I would look for it and I wouldn't be able to find it. Like, so I had messages disappearing. I had issues with not being able to locate messages. Like, let's say I was responding back and forth, but then I couldn't find the thread to the messaging. So that's why I'm not as big of a fan of Blackboard messaging as maybe some other professors. Like, personally, I prefer email, because I don't like that. Like, I don't like having to check multiple forms of communication. I mean, personally, I feel that checking one should be enough. But I also do understand that it is easier to send a message in Blackboard instead of having to go log into your email. I understand that it's easier for you all, so that's why I'm fine with it, even though there are issues with it. But because there are issues with it, that's why I'm saying that if you're going to Blackboard message, you need to adhere to a certain protocol. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show this to you all, so that way you can see what it is. And I do have a video that goes over this, but I'll show it to you all right now, so that way you don't have to like I'm not just going to be like, oh, watch the video. Like, I'm going to show you all right now, like how to do this. Okay, so let me go ahead and share the screen with you all. And it's actually very simple once you get the hang of it. So let me go over here. So y'all can see my screen, right? Y'all can see the government 2305, which, and this is going to look a little bit different for you all, because there's some stuff that's hidden that y'all don't have access to. But anyway, so let's go to the messages real quick. So let's say I wanted to like send a message. Okay, so this is the box that you need to click on. Okay, so if I'm going to send a message, you need to click on this box right here. Send an email copy to recipients. Okay, this is what you need to do. So this is all I'm asking. If you're going to use messages, this is all I ask for y'all to do, is to click on this box right here. Let me see. There's a question in the chat here. Okay, so someone's asking about Pronto. Okay, now I've also had issues with Pronto in the past. So I can try to access it again. Again, as I was saying, that's another form. You see, look, and let me explain it to y'all. Like I said, I'm just trying to be real with y'all. Like, it's difficult to have to check 3 forms of communication: email, messages, and pronto. Do you see like how that would be very like not just confusing, but also very like stressful? Now, I'm not saying like I'm not getting mad at you all for asking that. I'm just explaining that it is a lot to have to monitor. And I understand that some of these other programs are easier. And that's why I'm not saying no. I'm just saying that I've had issues with it in the past. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back and look at it and see if I can try to get on it again. Although, like I said, I'm not really the biggest fan of having to monitor so many forms of communication, but if it's something that, yes, yeah, and I'm not trying to get mad at you. I'm just saying that it is a lot, but if it's something, but let me get to the point here, is that I do understand that it is easier for you all to use Pronto. So that's why I'm fine with like I'm okay with using it again. There have been some technical issues with it, just like with the Blackboard messaging. So that's why I'm a fan of email, because of the 3 forms of communication, it's the one that has the least problems. But I also understand that it's probably the most difficult for you all to use. So, like I said, like when I was in undergrad, it was difficult for me to kind of figure out the email process. So I understand that the pronto is probably the easiest way. So that's why I'm receptive to using it again. But just keep in mind that, and I don't know if any professors ever told you all this, that it is a lot to like monitor all these forms of communication, right? So, but again, I'm not saying no. So to answer your question, I will go back and I will look through it and I'll see if I can get back on it. It's also very complicated for me to get, but that's a good point. But I'll go ahead and try to get on. So to answer your question, yes, I will try to get on it and I'll try to use it again. Just that I've had some technical issues with it, and like I said, it is a lot to monitor 3 forms of communication. But again, I'll do my best to help you all out, because I understand that is easy for you. Okay, so now do keep in mind that if I'm going to use Pronto, just also keep in mind that if, let's say, just to use it responsibly, please don't be sending like at 3 in the morning. Like, even though I'm going to be honest with you, I probably will be up, but I'm probably not going to be like, I might not be in the mood to be like, sending messages at 3 in the morning, because I'm probably like, getting ready to like, I don't know, like I usually use that as my downtime. Like that's another thing about me, is that I'm a night person. I usually go do my exercise at night, mostly because it's hot, but also because I'm more of a night person. So if you like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, don't like, I guess you can go ahead and send it, but don't expect for me to like respond like instantaneously. Like, you know, be respectful of the fact that, I'm probably busy or I'm probably asleep, and I'll get back to you all as soon as I can. But yes, but to answer your question, yes, I will configure it and I'll see if I can get back on it. So yes, that's something that I guess I can do. I mean, because I think some of y'all would like that, right? Like do some of y'all use it as well? Like, do you all like using it? Because I figure it's the form of communication that you all prefer. And even though it's not the one I prefer, but I can help you a lot. Like I'm willing to, I am willing to, to kind of meet you all halfway on that. So I can definitely do that. Just give me some time to kind of figure it out. I'll do that after we get out of the meeting. So I'll see if I can figure it out here, because it does have its uses, right? To be able to connect instantaneously, just as long as we use it responsibly, though. That's my only thing. But anyway, so okay, but going back to my to the message here. Make sure that you click on this, right? Because again, I need for y'all to click on this, because what that does is that sends me an alert to my email that, hey, a Blackboard message has been sent. Now, what I don't like about Blackboard is that I cannot reply within my email. There's another learning management system. That's what Blackboard is. It's called an LMS. There's another learning management system called Canvas that other colleges use, and I like that one a lot better, because I could actually respond to a message in my email. I don't have to click into Blackboard and then respond to the message. I could respond from my email. So that's something that I have contacted Blackboard about, and I'm trying to get them to make that feature where, if let's say I get that notification in my email that a message has been sent, that I can just respond. But again, that's neither here nor there. But my point is that please click on this, so that way there's record that a message has been sent. And so that way I know, I can see it in my email that a message has been sent. Okay, so if you're going to use messaging, please do this. If you don't, I'm going to respond. I cannot answer your message until you're going to have to resubmit the message and click on this so that I could get the alert. So please please do this. I know some of y'all might not like that, but I'm explaining why I need to put that requirement in, because I've had issues in the past with the messaging, like, the technical issues, the message is disappearing. So this is, when it comes to messaging, this is all I'm asking. Okay, so please adhere to this. Okay, and like I said, there's a reason why I'm strict about this, like I mentioned, because of the issues that I've had in the past. So yes, if you're going to use messaging, please use this. And I will, like I said, I will look into getting back onto Pronto. Like I said, there's been some technical issues with it, but I'll try again. So okay, so we've got the messaging protocol out of the way. Okay, and if you haven't watched the videos, it's basically just what I just said. So that way you all can already get a sense for that. Okay, so moving on now. Let's go to the syllabus really quickly. And if you have any questions, please stop me. Okay, so I have both the federal and the Texas one open. Now, we don't have to go over both of them because the differences within the federal and the Texas, again, you can look that up on your own. That's basically like the course description, right? The course description, obviously, of course, is going to be different because it's a different class. But again, most of the stuff that we're going to talk about today is the housekeeping stuff, right? So if it's questions about the content, about federal government, Texas government, feel free to contact me and we can talk about that. But we don't necessarily need to spend too much on that because that's what you all are going to do, right? You're all going to go and read through the material, and then I will help you all along the way as you continue to work on the class here. Okay, contact information. Some of y'all obviously, of course, have already seen this. This is my email. As I said before, this is my preferred form of communication. But again, you want to send Blackboard messages, as long as you adhere to the requirements, that's fine. And like I said, I will try to get on Pronto and just let's just be responsible with it. Because okay, so I'm not really going to be in my office this summer because I'm teaching online. So again, contacting me virtually is your best bet. Let's see, and it's got Professor Murray, the department chair, information. So if you do have issues, definitely contact me first. Again, I don't want to sound like as if you all can't like come to me with issues. Okay, I know that some of you all, maybe not necessarily in the meeting right now, but I know some of you all probably don't like that I'm putting all these requirements for the messaging, and so maybe that might make you all feel like I'm being like a jerk or something like that. But as I mentioned before, I have my reasons for it, right? I'm not just doing it just to make it more tedious. I have my reasons for why I'm putting that in there. So I want for you all to understand that I'm a current student myself. I'm going to be starting my PhD. I was working on another master's earlier. So I do know what it's like to be a student. I understand what it's like to be a student and to be working. It's very difficult. So I don't want for y'all to feel that you can't like talk to me about things or make suggestions like you were saying, like some of y'all were talking about Pronto earlier, right? I'm definitely receptive to feedback and wanting to do what I can to help you all out as best as I can, because you all are the reason why I get to enjoy this career that I enjoy so much, right? And so I definitely want to be flexible with you all. I want to work with you all. And we'll see how the semester plays out. Like I said, I do understand that the summer is very stressful because of how condensed it is. So if something comes up, please let me know. Like something came up with me yesterday with my grandmother, so I let you all know. So feel free to let me know about some of those things as well. Okay. If something comes up where, let's say, you've got some emergency or you're sick or something like that. Unfortunately, COVID is kind of still bothering us. There's this new variant going around. So it's just, oh yeah. So it's just more of that. It never really went away, as much as people like to think it did, it didn't, and it's something that we still have to deal with. So if things like that come up, please reach out to me, let me know. I will definitely be as flexible as possible. But definitely no, because in the summer it's very easy to get behind. So if you're going to be out for a bit, please let me know so that way we can make arrangements here. Okay. Again, course learning outcomes, like with Texas and federal, pretty much, again, this is what you're going to be learning here. So all this stuff about, the federal system, constitutional democracy, checks and balance, separation of powers, all this stuff is what you're going to be learning, the three branches of government, legislative, executive, judicial, the election process, voting, all that stuff. And then going over to Texas would be like the plural executive, because if you take, I've always recommended for students to take federal government first before Texas, because and it's not required, but I do prefer that because a lot of stuff in Texas is is review from federal. So as you can see, we've got the three branches of government in Texas, right? So instead of having to reteach what those three branches are, it makes sense to take federal first because that way I don't have to go into great detail about what these three branches are. And instead I can focus on how they're different in Texas. Because yes, in Texas we have the three branches, but they operate a little bit differently. So that's why I prefer for y'all to take federal first. But again, that's just my personal opinion, things like that. But as you can see, there are some similarities with federal and Texas, but there are some differences. So okay, and then again, the core objectives. This is what is required of us from the state of Texas, that we have to be able to determine that you all are not just learning the content, but that you're also able to use it and able to exhibit that that content through these types of skills, like the critical thinking skills, communication skills, personal responsibility, and social responsibility. But don't worry too much about them because that's what you're going to be doing throughout the class. Because I've made it to where the assignments that you're going to be doing are going to measure those things. Like critical thinking is something that you're going to have to do in the class, regardless, right? I mean, I don't think that it's really possible for students to do well in a class if they can't exhibit critical thinking skills when it comes to like maybe doing well in the discussion boards, which also is a combination of communication skills too, right? So in the discussion boards, you can knock both of them out, right? By exhibiting critical thinking skills in order to be able to come up with your answers to the discussion questions and also how you answer them, right? And how you communicate it, right? So the point I'm trying to make is that don't stress too much about, oh, did I demonstrate critical thinking skills? Did I demonstrate personal responsibility? You're going to do all that within the class, within the way the class is set up, within the expectations of the class, the requirements of the class. You will be able to do those things, okay? And then of course it goes in more detail about the final project and how most of this is going to be. Okay, now for the course requirements, just know since this is an online class, just make sure that you have a working computer, that you have a that you've got working internet. Don't be like me earlier where I was having internet issues, but sometimes those come and go. So just make sure that you're able to connect to the internet so you can do your work and also to be able to meet with me. Because that's another thing also is that if you need to meet with me, we can also set up Zoom meetings where we can meet. Like if let's say you need to meet with me like you would like actually have like virtual office hours, and the way it works is that during those office hours times I am available here on the computer. So if you actually do need to speak with me and you need to set up a meeting, we can do that. We can have a Zoom meeting like that. We can also set up other Zoom meetings in terms of like having like a class meeting for like I think we should do another one for the final project, even though I do have a lecture video already that goes over that. Like I have lecture videos for all this stuff already from previous semesters. Like I already have an intro video that's similar to this, but again, I wanted to kind of do like a live one in real time, for every class, because I do feel that that's important, like I was saying earlier, so y'all can be able to have that sense of connection and that you don't feel like you're just kind of talking to the computer, right? Like you're actually talking to someone in real time. So I do have lecture videos for some of these other things, but if you want to have like an actual live one where we go over the discussions, I mean, we're going to go over the discussions right now, and we can also take a little bit of time to also go over the final project as well. Like we can hit on that, but if you need like a more detailed video or like if you need a detailed meeting, we can do that as well. Netiquette. So again, I think you all have taken online classes before, right? So you all know like how to conduct yourselves with each other, especially during the discussions, right? So, just make sure that we're not disrespecting anyone. This is not Twitter. This is not Facebook. We're not going to be engaging in that type of stuff. The type of stuff that I would block instantly if someone was coming at me and being all abrasive like that. That's an automatic block on my, on my social media because I'm not going to put up with that. But we're obviously not going to have that here because this is an academic setting and we're going to be respectful of each other, even if we disagree. And the good thing, and actually that's a very important point. It's very difficult for human beings to disagree with each other because it doesn't feel good, right? That's why everyone just takes a lot of this stuff personally. But what we need to understand is that disagreement is not a bad thing. Conflict is not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing because it's hard to learn if we're all just agreeing with each other, right? If we're just parroting the same information, if it's just an echo chamber, we're all just, saying the same thing, then no one's really going to learn much of anything. No one's going to be able to look at different sides of an issue and look at, different ways that an issue could be looked at. So I welcome disagreement. In fact, because I want discussion. I want for there to be, some of these, back and forth discussions. And some of these discussions can get very spirited. Like I know in the Texas government class, I have a discussion question that basically asks you all to talk about, certain political issues or things like that, right? So I understand that, like I said, I've been teaching this stuff for 8 years. I've been politically active for most of my life. So I do understand how abrasive it can be. I totally get it. Like I said, I've had to block people for the way they, come at me with, against not coming at me against my political views, but coming at me because of my like credentials. Like I had this one guy who, let me just share like a quick personal story and then we'll continue. So I had this one guy that was this friend of mine, and he was just being really like abrasive with me about what I was posting online about my political views. And he was basically trying to make me look like an idiot. And I basically, before I blocked him, I basically said, "All right, dude, all right, when was the last time you were on the news giving your political views?" In reference to the fact that I've been on local news numerous times giving my political viewpoints because I'm a professor, and the media wants to hear my opinion because I've got credentials that back up that I'm someone that knows what they're talking about. Now, it's not to say that I'm the only person that can talk about those things, but the thing that was pissing me off was because this guy was basically making it sound like I didn't know what I was talking about, when no, dude, I do know what I'm talking about. I'm a political science professor, dude. Like that's fine if you disagree with me, but don't try to go after my credentials like that. So, and then I blocked. But anyway, but the point is that like that let's not do that. Okay, let's not be going after people like that. Just stay on topic and discuss the issues, right? So I don't think we're going to have any issues with netiquette here. In all the years I've taught, I think there was only like one time where I had like some students like were kind of going at each other online, and it was and it just was a little bit overboard. Um, but at the same time, but at the same time, I don't want for people to not feel like they can't disagree. Like I want y'all to disagree. I want y'all to have different viewpoints. I want y'all to be able to explain yourselves, and we'll talk more about that when we get to the discussion overview here in a bit. But just keep in mind that that's what I want for y'all to understand. Okay, so respond to this. I think some of y'all have, and again, I'm sorry if I was being a little bit petty about that story, but it's just that, like I said, I don't have a lot of tolerance for people who, uh, try to be sarcastic with me and things like that. Like no, they know it better. But anyway, so respondents. Okay, so I think some of y'all have used the respondents program before. So it is STC policy. This is something that has been discussed in our meetings, that the tests that we give out online have to be proctored through the respondents. Now we're going to be changing to honor lock in the fall, but don't worry about that. That's something you all will deal with later. So we're going to be using the respondents program that you all have used before. Now I know that there have been reports that some professors don't use it, but they're not supposed to be doing it. They are supposed to use it. So we're going to be using it here. And I think you all have used it before, right? In other classes, right? Where they have that's why it requires for you all to have the web camera, right? Where it records the video and all that stuff. So let me also say a little bit about the way that I give the exams. Now, the exams are open note. Okay, so this is something. This is probably the most important thing I want you all to take away from today, if nothing else. Definitely know that the exams are open note. Okay, so you can use your note. You can use your notes, your books, your resources. Like I'll give you all an example. Like if let's say I was taking this course, I'd probably print out the PowerPoints because I'm like a visual learner. I'd have the book there with me as well as notes I wrote out. So I'd probably have all that stuff with me. Now, what I also want to mention is that what I'm looking for when I review the video is that, okay, so you can use your notes, right? So that's fine. But you're not allowed to be like taking the test together, right? So if I see that, there's several of you all there working on the test together, then that's going to be considered cheating. So I'm explaining what is allowed and what isn't. So do pay attention to this. So yes, you can use your notes, but you have to do the test individually, okay? So, and you know what that means, right? So that means, no one there, like, not taking the test together. So when I review the video, I will look for that to ensure that you all are taking the test by yourself. And you can use, so that's kind of like a compromise, right? That, excuse me, that I let you all use your notes, but that you also have to make sure that you take the test by yourself, okay? let's see, there's a question in the chat here. Okay, so question, okay, India's asking. So the question is regarding the test quiz. Are they based off the PowerPoints and free ebook? Also, can we access our notes for the Oh, okay, yes. Okay, so there's a couple questions here. Okay, now, are you in the federal government class? Because yes, because in the federal government class, we're also going to get to the textbook here in a bit. In the federal government class, the official book that we're using is the We the People 14th edition. However, I do understand that, money's tight right now. We've got a lot of issues with inflation. We're going to see how that plays out with the presidential election coming up. So I do understand that money's tight for a lot of people. And of course, and that's why I am very proud of you all for going to school in spite of how everything is so expensive, because you obviously want to move up in life, right? You want to be able to have be in a better financial situation. I mean, I think that's why we're all kind of here, right? And of course, the main reason why you are here is because the class is a requirement in order to be able to graduate, so that you can move up and then be in a more in a better financial situation, which will also help with everything else in your life, right? Studies, of course, are out there that that people with, obviously, of course, but doing better financially, higher up the socioeconomic ladder, will have better outcomes when it comes to like healthcare. Not all the time, but usually it does go that way. Okay, but the point is that, so yes, so in the federal government class, it's the We the People book, but I do have that free ebook, right? So it's up to you all in terms of if you want to still get the official textbook, but I put that ebook there as an extra resource for you all. Okay, so that's so, but going back to your question, are they based? Okay, so let me explain how the tests work. So the tests are not necessarily based on like the publishers and all that. We created our own tests in the department. So the test questions come from colleagues of mine in the political science department here at STC. So so the way it works is there are our own questions, and every question is going to come from a pool of questions. So what that means here is that, let me show this to y'all really quick so y'all can see what I'm talking about. Let me see. Okay. So let me go to let me show you all what this looks like. Let me go to the test really quickly. So I'm gonna scroll on here. Let me go down to one of the tests here so y'all can see what I'm talking. Don't worry, it's not going to show you all the questions. So, but let me go to the test here real quick. So, if I edit the test, I want you all to see what I'm talking about. So, this is what it's talking about. You see how when I say that it pulls from a pool of questions, this is what it's talking about here. That question 1 could be one of 3 questions. Question 2 could be one of 2 questions. Question 3 could be one of 4. The reason why it's done so the reason why it's done this way is to try to minimize the amount of cheating. Because if everyone gets the same exact test, then that's easier for people to try to cheat on. So instead, excuse me, you have a list of questions that it could, and it gets it random, right? So it pulls it randomly. So let's say you're taking the test and you get the first of the 3 questions, and then someone else gets the second of the 3 questions. So everyone's test is going to look different because of that pool of questions. Okay, so that's how the tests work. That it's from a pool of questions that we developed as a department, and so that's the way the test is set up. Now, keep in mind also that you have 2 attempts, right? And it's going to be the highest grade. So you have 2 attempts. So you can take the test over again, right? So you can take it up to 2 times. Now, this was also done in case there's technical issues with the test. Excuse me. But it's also good in case, let's say, you fail the first test and you want to try to do better. You have that option to do so. Or maybe let's say you get a 75 on the test, and yes, that's passing, but maybe you feel like you can do better. Well, then you have the right to go and retake the test again. And it's always going to be the highest grade. So I know some professors, they're like, well, if you retake it, it replaces it, which I do not know why professors are. I do not agree with that. I feel that that's kind of being mean. Like, let me give you all another example of a professor that I had that did something really, like, I was not a fan of this. So There was this one professor in my undergrad classes where he gave, like, it was a multiple choice and also a true or false test. And what he did was he made A false and B true. And I'm like, how does that how does that determine whether I know the material or not? You're just trying to trick us. So I'm not a fan of that. Like, I don't see the logic behind that. But again, other professors are different, but I would not do something like that. And I'd be pretty pissed. And I was pretty pissed when I found out what happened. So the point is, I'm not going to do something like that. Like, I'm not going to try to trick you all. I'm not going to try to, like, no, because the point is, I'm trying to figure out if you all know the material. Which, another thing I also want to mention is that these classes, in my opinion, are not very hard. Like, your algebra classes, your calculus classes, your physics classes, your bio classes, your math and science classes, those are the ones that are very difficult. Those are the type of classes that, like, you can read till the cows come home, and if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. These classes are not like that. If you read, I guarantee you that you'll do well in this class. Okay, and that is an expectation, right? That I do expect you all, to read the material, read the book, read the chapters and all that. I also understand that because it's a summer semester, it might be very difficult to be able to read through everything. So if you skim through it, if you read through the chapter summaries, in federal government, there's a lot more resources to give to you all because Texas is a little bit more nuanced. It's a little bit more, it's more of a niche subject. So there's not as much material for Texas, even though we are working on some of that to expand on some of that material. And I try to do the best I can to add, some additional resources for y'all. But the point is that just try your best to read through what you can. If you have to skim through stuff, if all you can do is read through the summaries, I understand. I'm not going to be offended by that. Okay, guys, like, I understand that federal government and Texas government should not be the center of y'all universe. No, it shouldn't. Life's more important than making a class the center of y'all's universe. So I don't want you all to you have things you have to do. We all have lives, right? So I want to try to make this class as straightforward as possible. So I guarantee you all that if you read, you'll do good. You'll do fine. Let me also say something else. And this is the truth. In all the years that I have taught this class, coming up on 8 years, I have never had a student fail this class and they did all their work. They did all their tests, they did all their quizzes, they did all their discussions, they turned in their final project. I have never had a student fail and they did all of that. The only students that have failed my class in the last 8 years are the ones that don't do their work, the ones that don't finish all their work, the ones that they miss like a test, they don't turn in their final project. Those are the students that have failed. So if you do your work, if you turn everything, and of course, obviously do it well, right? Don't just not study for the test, right? Obviously, of course, you have to prepare for those things. But if you do your best, if you study, if you read, and if you need help on doing some of those things, I can also give you all some suggestions. One thing I learned, many years ago was, like, if you don't have time to read like the whole chapter, read like the first sentence and the last sentence of a paragraph. That doesn't always work all the time, but it's better than nothing, right? So I've learned, little tricks like that. So little strategies, tidbits like that. So if you all need it, more suggestions like that, I can definitely offer that to you all to help you out with your study. But the point is that if you all do your work, then I guarantee you that you all will do, will do okay. Okay, all right. So that's what I want to explain to the question. Okay, and then the other point also was, I think you mentioned that you were asking that, can you use your notes on the quiz? Yes. You can use your notes on everything in this class, on the quizzes, the tests. In fact, I encourage you all to do that because that will help you all get a better grade. I don't see why you shouldn't do that, right? Like you'd be stupid not to use your notes or the book, right? Things like that. So definitely do that. Yes, even if it's yes, yes, because let me explain. So yes, it's lockdown browser, and I'm going to be watching the video. But again, remember I said that I'm going to be looking to make sure that it's just you doing the test. So that's what I'm looking for. So if it flags you, don't worry, because only I look at the video. And like I said, if I see something that flags you, I'm going to look to see what it is. And if it's because, like, let's say you got up to get a drink of water, but no, but it's just you, then okay, nothing's wrong, right? I'm going to be looking to make sure that it's not people collaborating, right? Colluding, and working on the test. That's pretty much what I'm looking for. Okay, so if it flags you, don't worry about it. Just as long as you're not taking the test together, then that's pretty much what I'm looking for. So I know that some students have also asked in the past about, like, for Texas government, that since the ebook is on the computer, that is it going to let you do that? So in that case, what I would recommend for y'all to do is to have your ebook like on a separate device, like let's say like an iPad or a tablet. If I know not everyone is able to get those. I don't even have one, I don't think. So like your cell phone or whatever, even though it would be hard for me to like read it on a cell phone, but maybe an extra laptop, you know what I mean? And I understand that might be tough for some of them, but if you have an extra device, that's what I would recommend to you. This is mostly for the Texas government students. So if you have an extra device that you need to be looking at the ebook, that's what I would recommend to do. Because I don't think it's going to let you look at the ebook and take the test on the same computer. So yeah, I think for that you would have to use a secondary device, which again, that's fine. So if I see that you're looking down because you're looking at your secondary device, that's totally fine. Here's another suggestion that I would want I would want for y'all to do is that, let's say you have your ebook on another device. Put the device next to the camera so that it's in view, so that I can see that that's what it is, that's the ebook. Okay. So many years, let me share one more personal story on this. So many years ago, before I got hired to be a professor here at STC, I actually worked in the security department at STC back about 15 years ago. Goodness gracious, it was that long ago. See, I used to be that annoying person that would put like boots on the cars and issue out the tickets, like, for no permits and all that stuff. I used to be, because I used to be like one of the supervisors in security. So the point is that we also had a lost and found there in security. And so whenever the custodians would turn in lost and found items to us at security, what I would do is of course, we have to document what it is, right? We have to tag it and document it and put that in the system. And then before we put the item in the little lost and found section that we had there in the office, I would hold up the item, and I would hold it up next to the camera, because we also had a camera there in the office, to ensure that no one was going and stealing stuff from the lost and found. There was a camera right there under the lost and found to ensure that nobody would do that. But I would take the extra step to also show the item to the camera so that there was a good viewpoint, so that you could clearly see what it was. And then I would clearly put it in the lost and found section. The reason why I would do that is because cameras can also help you. They're not just meant to catch you. They can also help you to make, if someone accuses you of something, you can use cameras to vindicate yourself. So I would like for you all to use that same type of logic, that if you're going to use like a secondary device, put the secondary device next to your, like in view of your camera. So that way I can know that, okay, you're using your device, that the book is there, right? That's what. So I would recommend for y'all to do the same thing also. So I know I just go on and on about a lot of things, so I do apologize. We'll try to hurry this up as quickly as we can. But yeah, so that's okay. Let's go back to the syllabus here. All right, so that's what the expectations is for the exams. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so that's pretty much okay. Okay, so this is grading criteria. This is probably the other important thing that a lot of you all are focused on. Okay, now the grading criteria is pretty much the same for both federal and Texas. The only major real difference is that in Texas, there's 4 tests, and in federal, there's 3. So the grade weights are pretty much identical, except that, so like for Texas, let's see, the quizzes and assignments in federal are weighted more than in Texas. But as you can see, it's the same 4 groups of assignments, right? There's exams, discussions, quizzes, and your signature assignment, which is your final project, right? So let me also take some time. So now that we're on this subject here, let me take some time to go over the class layout really quickly. So that way you all can kind of get a sense for how the class looks, since we're talking about the assignments, right? And that's probably what most of you all are interested in. So if you all went through the start here, this gives you the link to the syllabus. It gives you the book information, and also some Blackboard resources like the help desk and all that. I've got the link for the OER. That OER stands for Open Educational Resource. So again, in federal government, we are using the We the People book. but the American government one is a second resource. And actually in the fall, I'm going to start using only the American government one. I wanted to do that this summer, but we have to wait until the fall, to make these changes. So, and again, like I said, so if you're not able to get that official We the People book, if you want to just use the American government one, I'm fine with that. Like I said, I understand that that the economy's tough. I understand, and again, and because the tests are made by us and it's not based on a publisher, some of y'all might feel like, well, maybe I can just go with this book. I'm totally fine with it, right? So because if you click on it, then it takes you to the to the OpenStax site. And like I said, this is going to be the primary book I'm going to start using in the fall. And then you download the PDF, and then it gives you the book there. And I've also included some extra resources too that come from the things like that. In the intro, again, this is basically what we're doing right now. I made one in the previous semester. The protocol, we already went over that. Again, just click on that little box and you should be good. The intro discussion, the syllabus understanding, I had that due for yesterday. If you still haven't finished it, please get it done. I'm already grading it. And some of y'all probably saw that as long as y'all did it, you all got a good grade on it, right? So as long as you just, answer, the question there in the intro and then do the syllabus acknowledgement, then you're good, right? Okay, so that's at the start here. And I believe for Texas, it's also the. Oh, wait, no, where's the Texas? Sorry, hold on. I think for Texas, it's the same thing, right? It's got the same type of setup here, right? Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Okay. Okay, so now let's go to the. Okay, so every chapter is going to be in a unit. Okay, now because like I was saying earlier, that the summer is very condensed, we're basically going to have to cover a unit per week. Okay, so if you haven't started reading, definitely please do so. And the way I have things due is I have my assignments due on Sunday night. So that's when the intro and the syllabus acknowledgement, I had them due yesterday because I had to turn in roster verification. So only for that reason, right? Or else I would have given you all till the end of the week. And these are very easy. Like as you all saw, it didn't take very long to complete them. So I figured, okay, that's fine. We can have them due by like Tuesday. So the quizzes, though, these are going to take a little bit longer. So those are going to be due on Sunday. Okay, so when you click on, the unit one, it gives you the unit overview in terms of what to complete. So if you click on the unit overview, it gives you like, the key points of what, the outcomes in terms of what you're going to be learning here, and then the to-do list. Basically the way it works is every chapter is going to have every chapter has its own quiz, right? So pretty much what you have to do in each chapter is the only thing that you really have to do is just complete the quiz. There's going to be one quiz per chapter, right? Okay, so that's the quiz right there, right? So I want to talk about this first, and then we'll go up to the other resources, right? So make sure that when you're going through the chapters, that you make sure that you locate the quiz, right? So every chapter is going to have its own quiz. That's the only thing that you have to do within the chapter itself. Now, I also want to make a point that all this stuff here is not mandatory for you all to click on, okay? I know there's what, like there's more than 10 items here. So I know some students in the past, are like, that's a lot that you put here. So let me clarify why I put a lot of this information in here. So because this is an online class, because we're not actually having class lectures, I want to try to replicate like if we were meeting like in person, right? I want to try to replicate that as best as possible, right? Where, to kind of simulate that, right? So that's why I have all of this information, right? I have chapter overviews. I have, well, let's go to the introduction here. So the introduction basically gives you like a brief summary of what each chapter is going to be about. Let's see. Can we also access that on another device? Yes, you can do that. Yes, you can. Like I said, that's probably what I would recommend for y'all to do. Let me just take another drink of water here. Yes, because if I was in you all's position and if I was taking this class, that's what I would do. I would have my other device there next to me while I'm taking the exam, and then so the main computer is where you take the exam, and then the secondary device is when you're looking up like the notes in the book. Yeah, so I would do the exact same thing. Yes, you can definitely do that. So yes, the intro basically, again, just gives you a little breakdown in terms of what the chapter is about, and then the overview goes more into detail. So again, my point is that, and there's also like little like practice activities for y'all to do. Again, these are not graded, okay? So there's extra little learning activities and other stuff for y'all to do. Again, none of this is graded. The only thing that's for a grade is the quiz, okay? And I understand if you all don't have time to go through the learning activities. I totally get that. Again, this is just meant to help you all as you're studying for the quiz and also studying for the exams, right? Um, again, I have PowerPoints for both again, this is for federal government. I have the PowerPoints for both, and we'll get to Texas right now. So for federal government, I have the PowerPoints for both the main textbook and the secondary one. I also have chapter outlines, flashcards here. Some of these might not be accessible if you don't have an account with the publisher. So if it is what it is, because I think they'd want you to pay for that. So so some of this stuff might just be for the people who maybe bought the textbook online. But then of course there's also some other secondary resources here. So again, you don't have to go through all of this, okay? This is just extra stuff for you all to do. Now, I do have lecture videos, awesome. Now, again, this is not mandatory, but I would definitely recommend for you all to check these out. These are lecture videos that I have made, as well as other lecture videos from other professors like Dr. Tom Patterson, who's probably one of the most quintessential experts on American government. He teaches at Harvard University, he's written a bunch of books. So he's got some good stuff there. Again, none of this is mandatory. You don't have to go through this. But because it's an online class, I want to give you all those resources to try to simulate like as if we actually were meeting, right? So the lecture videos I do feel are very helpful. I've recorded them from previous semesters where I've taught, these online classes. I am in the process of redoing them. Like I'm going to redo my lecture videos this summer. That's my main project that I need to do this summer, as well as write a chapter for one of these Texas government OERs that we're working on. So I've got a lot that I have to do this summer. So I am going to redo them, but in the meantime, these are fine. They touch on the key points. I just need to update them a little bit because these were made a couple years ago. But definitely, like, I would definitely recommend for y'all to watch them. And some of y'all probably have watched them already, right? I also have a lot of the crash course videos too. Like I know, like in chapter 4, there's a bunch of them, right? Like if you scroll down to the bottom, there's the crash course videos for you see like there's like freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Again, these are not mandatory. You don't have to go through all of this, but it's there if you need that extra help. And also keep in mind for federal government for chapter 4, there are 2 quizzes. There's a Bill of Rights quiz and a chapter 4 quiz. Okay. So yes, so you're gonna have to do all of this by this week, okay? Because that's just the nature of the way summer is, unfortunately. I'm not a big fan of it either, but it is what it is. So then at the end of the chapter, you're going to have 2 other assignments that you have to do. These are unit assignments. So you've got your unit discussion, and then of course you have the unit exam, right? Now I also have another lecture video where I go over the discussion, but we can also do that right now. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is we're going to look at the discussion. I'm also going to show you all the rubric for how it's graded, and I'm going to give you all the inside information in terms of what I'm looking for, like how I would grade this. Like if I was in you all's position, how would I answer these questions? What would I do? That's what I'm going to explain right now. And this is going to be very helpful for y'all because I'm going to explain to you all, like I said, what I'm looking for when I grade the discussions, what I want you all to do, and basically how to do these. So I'm going to kind of give you all like a little like sample. Like I'm gonna basically I'm gonna kind of do the discussion here right now for you, right? Like I'm gonna pretend I was a student. Like I'm gonna pretend I'm the student, and I'm gonna explain how I would answer. Okay, so not to say that you have to answer it exactly that same way, because the good thing about these discussions is that there like especially for this one, there's no right or wrong answer. Let me explain. Let's go over it really quick. So for federal government, okay, discussion topic. The U.S. Constitution is a rather short, generally worded document that can mean different things to different people. These characteristics make the Constitution flexible, but it can be updated through judicial interpretation without needing frequent amendments. Basically, what this means here is that as you're going to read through in this unit, you're going to read about how the Constitution can change, right? That that there is a process to amend the Constitution, but as you're going to see, that process is extremely difficult because you need majorities in the Senate and the House, and then you need supermajorities of the states to approve a constitutional amendment. So it's very, very difficult to get done. And certainly in this day and age, with all of the political polarization between Democrats and Republicans, the left versus the right, where they're so divided against each other, it's going to be a long time before we get a constitutional amendment, in my opinion. We might not even see one in my lifetime, or maybe even your lifetime, if the way the politics are continues, which I don't see why it wouldn't. Oh, I do need to change that due date. I'm sorry, it's not supposed to be 6:59, it's supposed to be 11:59. I'll change that. Okay, so let's continue. So, okay, so that's the issue, right? So the Constitution can be changed, but it's very difficult to do so. So instead, what we've seen is that we've seen the judicial branch, particularly the Supreme Court, get involved when it comes to our Constitution through judicial interpretation that is then put forth by Supreme Court decisions. So that's another thing that I want you all to understand as you're reading through federal government, is that, yes, we have the Constitution as a means to be able to change things about our government, but because it's very hard to amend the Constitution, the Supreme Court has done a lot of that heavy lifting in recent years. So if you look at certain things like abortion rights, with Roe versus Wade, 1973, and of course then we have the Dobbs case from Mississippi that overturned Roe versus Wade a couple of years ago. The Obergefell-Hodges case that legalized same-sex marriage. None of that was done through amending the Constitution. It was done through Supreme Court decisions, where the Supreme Court interpreted the Constitution to say that, yes, that marriage equality is legal according to the 14th Amendment and things like that, right? So they used the Constitution as a means to interpret it and then give their judicial opinions for why they believe something should be constitutional or not constitutional, like in the case of Obergefell-Hodges with marriage, with gay marriage and all that. But there are some drawbacks to that system. Because as it says here, however, changing the Constitution through judicial interpretation is undemocratic, since it puts power in the hands of unelected judges. Because that's another thing that you all also will learn in federal government, that at the federal level, that judges are appointed by the president and they have to get confirmed by the Senate. Texas, it's different. We'll talk about that here in a bit. So again, the discussion question is, what would you rather have? A loose Constitution that can be updated by court decisions like we see at the federal level, where the Constitution is short, broad, open to interpretation, not very stringent, and then we have Congress fill in the gaps with the laws they pass, and then the Supreme Court fill in more gaps with their judicial decisions? So would you rather have the way the federal government is set up, where the Constitution is not that specific, where you can fill in the gaps? Or would you have a rigid Constitution that doesn't have any gaps and instead relies on popular amendments to keep up with the times? Which, if you're taking Texas government, you're going to notice that this is how Texas does their Constitution. Whereas the federal government, their Constitution, like I said, very short, open to interpretation. You can read it in just a few minutes. Texas Constitution, it's going to take you days to read that thing, like if you take breaks, right? I'm sure you could do it in one night, but you'll be pulling your hair out. It is that long and that confusing. So it's a good comparison, right? The U.S. Constitution is like this. The Texas Constitution is like this, where it's very rigid, it's very long, there's over 700 amendments. There's no room for interpretation because it's all spelled out. Now, the key here is that, notice how there's no right or wrong answer to this, right? It's up to you in terms of which of these two you want to favor. Now, what I'm looking for in the discussion is, obviously, of course, you're going to make a decision in terms of which of these two you prefer, but you're going to explain why you prefer it. So if you prefer the federal system with the judicial interpretation and having a very active Supreme Court, well, why do you prefer it? Why do you feel that that's the better system? And so in order to answer that question, you're going to have to read through the chapter, right? This unit discussion is coming from chapter 2. So keep in mind that every unit is going to have their own discussion, and it's usually going to come from a specific chapter. So for this one, this is coming from chapter 2, because chapter 2 does talk about the U.S. Constitution. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to read through chapter 2. You're going to have to read through why the founding fathers decided to have a constitution this way. And from there, then you're going to be able to make your decision, right? So what I'm looking for is examples. Okay, that's what I'm looking for when I'm grading these discussions. I'm looking for examples. Are you able to give examples from the readings? Because that is the point of these discussions. I need to be able to determine whether you actually understand the readings, right? So by giving these examples and furthering your argument, that's how you're able to do well in the discussions, right? So I want for you all to reference, um, when you're talking about, like, let's say you want to reference checks and balances, right? That having a strong judiciary is a good thing because it checks the legislative and the executive branch to ensure that Congress isn't just passing a bunch of laws that are unconstitutional, or that the president isn't issuing executive orders that are unconstitutional, right? Because again, the judicial branch is supposed to act like the referee, so to speak, right? They're supposed to ensure that the rules are being adhered to, right? So that's kind of a sports analogy way to kind of look at how the federal court system operates, right? They're supposed to look at the constitutionality of laws and executive orders and ensure that they are in line with what the Constitution means. Now, as we get later on into the class, you're going to see that not all judges agree on the way to go about that when it comes to how a law should be interpreted. But that's another story. We'll talk about that later on when we get to the end of the course. So, but again, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for examples in terms of furthering your argument, in terms of why you would prefer the current system where there is that judicial interpretation, or explain why you prefer a more rigid constitution. You know, talk about, like, let's say you prefer the rigid constitution, talk about this issue of unelected judges, right? Do you feel that that gives judges too much power? Maybe explain why. Maybe talk a little bit about how in Texas judges are elected as opposed to appointed by the president, right? So again, I'm looking for examples. That's what I'm definitely looking for when it comes to the requirements, right? And so let's also go into more of the actual administrative requirements, right? So again, you have to make 3 total posts per discussion topic, right? The first post is where you answer, where you attempt to answer the question, and then you respond to 2 other classmates, right? So there's sentence and word length requirements, or word number requirements, right? So the initial post must have at least 5 sentences, must have at least 200 words, and you must respond to 2 of your classmates' answers. And then each of the responses are pretty much the same, and that you have to do the 5 sentences, except the responses are a little bit shorter. Just with 100 words is fine, right? So keep in mind that for the initial one, it has to be at least 200 words, and then the other 2 responses are at least 100 words, right? And then again, it also talks about trying to be prompt with your discussions, like, don't just post like the night it's due, because then you're not going to have a chance to be able to discuss with your classmates. So try to make sure that you try to post earlier in the week and things like that. So again, and that's the whole point of the discussion, right? To keep the conversation going, right? So I've also noticed that usually where students have the most problem with the discussions is the responses. It's not necessarily the actual answering of the question, because that's pretty straightforward. As long as you're using examples, that's fine. But I do understand that responding to students while using examples can be a little bit difficult. So again, what I would recommend is to try to expand upon what your classmates are saying. Or this would be a good chance to try to disagree. Like, let's say you favor the federal system of a constitution, but then you find a classmate that favors maybe like the way the state of Texas does it. Then that's a good opportunity for you all to be able to to disagree respectfully, right? And that's when you can give your examples as to, like let me give you an example. So like, let's say you're more in line of the broad open to interpretation constitution, but then a classmate says they're more they want the more stringent constitution. And then you can talk about, well, then if we have a stringent constitution, then it's going to be more difficult for the legislature to pass laws, because then they're going to have to be constantly checking every single like sentence of the constitution, like because the constitution because the state of Texas constitution is so lengthy, it's going to take a lot of time to have to go through the whole constitution to ensure that whatever law is passed is constitutional. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, it's going to take a lot more work. So that's an example that you could say, right? And that's not to say that that's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to say that you need to dot your I's and cross your T's more, in terms of like the way the Texas Constitution is. But some people might feel that that just takes too much time. And again, there's no right or wrong answer to that. I'm giving you an example in terms of how you would, possibly respond to your classmates or things like that. Or if, let's say, you agree with your classmate, but you agree for a different reason. That's called a concurring opinion. So maybe you see something that, like, you agree with them, but you agree for a different reason. Like, maybe you might make an argument that, like, let's say, yes, you agree that the Supreme Court should be active, when it comes to making these decisions, but maybe you feel that maybe the Supreme Court should take more cases or things like that. I don't know. You can, there's different ways that you can talk about this, right? So again, all I'm looking for is that you give examples and that you're able to explain your answers through logic and reason from the readings, right? I don't want you just to explain, well, yeah, I agree with that. Good job, And you can also share your own personal experiences too. Like you can also add to that as well. Like I know, like in the Texas government chapter, like I said, there's a question about your political viewpoints. Absolutely, you're gonna need to discuss maybe some personal experiences that you've gone through, maybe things you've seen. Like I know, like for me personally, like I'm very big on not tolerating like workplace bullying because I've been a victim of workplace bullying in a previous work environment. So obviously that's a very important issue for me because workplace bullying is something that affects your livelihood, because our jobs are usually the most important thing in our life, unfortunately, right? Because for a lot of people that's their healthcare, a lot of people that's their livelihood, right? Well, it is their livelihood. So when you have a situation where someone is messing with your livelihood, then that's very important, right? So for me, that's why it's something that it's really important to me, right? So again, personal experiences that you've gone through, maybe seen, you can definitely add that to the discussion. So does this make sense in terms of what I'm looking for in the discussions? Oh, let me show you all the rubric also. Let me show you all the rubric. So the way the rubric is going to look here is that, let me explain to you all how the grade weight is. So since there's 3 total posts, 50% of your grade is going to be based on the first post, which makes sense, right? Because it's the longest one. So, and then the way it's going to be graded is through this criteria, right? That, the excellent is if your post significantly exceeded minimum requirements for length and thoughtfulness. So if you go above and beyond, right? You do a really good job with giving your examples and explaining, then you're going to get 100% there. If you kind of just answer the question, but you don't really expand too much, then, and you meet the requirements for the sentence and the word, and the word count length, then it's 75. Unsatisfactory is going to be like if you don't meet the word requirements, you don't meet the sentence requirements. And then of course poor, if the post is not directly aligned, like as if it's not if it's like totally irrelevant, or if it's like very short, like it's like a sentence long. I've seen posts like that where it's like a sentence long. Like I'm not gonna give you all unsatisfactory. That's going to be poor because it's obviously that you didn't really do anything for that post. So you should be lucky that you're even getting a couple points. So, but yeah, so that's and then the other 2 responses, 25 and 25, right? So the big response is the actual answering of the question, and then the 2 responses to your classmates, that's going to be at 25%. That equals to 100 here. So that's the discussion rubric here. And you'll see as we go through the class that as long as you give those examples, you'll get a good grade. So just keep in mind of that. And then for Texas, it's pretty much the same thing. So does that make sense in terms of discussions, in terms of how that looks? Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, doesn't look like there's any questions here. Okay, all right, and then and so again, like I said, the discussion rubric is basically everything I just said right now. So, and I'll be uploading this video, but if you need a refresher, you can either go back to this video or you can go back to that one. Okay, and then of course, like we mentioned, the unit exam, like we talked about before, 50 questions, multiple choice, 2 points each. Going to be, so you are going to need that computer with a webcam capability, so that way the video can be recorded. And like I said, just as long as you're doing the test on your own, you can use the notes, you can use your book. That's totally fine. And that also goes for the quizzes. The quizzes are not going to be, you don't have to worry about the respondents for the quizzes. In fact, don't even really think of them as quizzes. Think of them as like extended assignments, things like that. So, okay. So that pretty much sums up what a typical unit looks like. And keep in mind, like I said, that all this is not mandatory. You don't have to click through everything. I just wanted to give you all extra resources for you all to use. Okay, so then let's see. I think we just have a couple more things to cover really quickly. So there are study guides, and you can also get extra credit for these study guides because, again, the study guides are not mandatory. You don't have to complete them. But they are helpful on the test. and you can use them on the test as well. Now, as I mentioned, keep in mind that the study guides are not going to be exactly the way the test is because there's a pool of questions. So obviously, of course, it's going to it's not going to be exactly as it is, but I wanted to narrow down some of the key points. So again, I do recommend for y'all to do the study guides because they can be helpful. But just keep in mind that the tests are not going to look exactly the way like the study guides are, because again, it'd be impossible, because then it would be a super long study guide and things like that. So, but yes, but I do recommend for y'all to do them, because if you complete them and if you like, and then I'll grade them, and if they're pretty much done pretty much correctly, like if you don't get too many off, like then I'll give you up to 10 points on your test. So that's a good extra credit incentive, right? So if you do the study guides and you do them correctly, you can get up to 10 points on the corresponding test, right? So, and that's a whole letter grade right there, right? So if let's say you get an 80 on the test, but then you did the study guide, then you can get a 90, so you can still get your A. So so I definitely recommend for y'all to do the study guides, and you can also do them together. Okay, so you can do them together if you want to. In fact, when I was in grad school, that's the way I would do my study guides, is that I would get together with my classmates, and let's say we had a professor that gave us, now of course in grad school it's mostly essay tests. So we had this professor who would give us like 10 possible essay questions, but he would only have us do 4. So we had to study for all 10 because we didn't know which one he was going to pick. So what we did was we would get like into like groups of 5, and then I would take 2 essays, another one of us would take another 2, and then we would all combine into Google Doc. So you can do that if you all want to. You can work on the study guides together. In fact, I would recommend to do that. I would definitely recommend for you all to form study groups and things like that if you all are interested in doing that. They can be helpful as long as everyone does their part. I know some of y'all probably seen that meme. It's what is it? What meme is that? It's the one from Black Panther where it's like, we don't do that here. Like I've seen like the meme where they do that, like when someone's actually studying with the study group, and then he's like, we don't do that here. So I think that's pretty funny because there's a lot of like complaints. It's kind of funny that people actually don't study in the study groups, but maybe virtually it might be a little bit better. But yeah, I would definitely recommend for y'all to form some study groups and maybe do that, right? Maybe like split up the study guide where it's like, okay, like you take questions 1 through 10, someone else takes questions 11 through 20, and then just combine it, and then you can turn it in. That's fine, as long as everyone turns in their own copy, even if it's the same from the group. I'm fine with it. Like I said, I kind of recommend. I think that might be a good idea here. There are additional resources here. Again, please don't be overwhelmed. There's a lot of stuff in here, but again, this is just for you all. In the summer, it'd probably be impossible to kind of go through a lot of this stuff, but there's extra resources I have for you all. There's some journal articles, other videos, and things like that. But again, none of this is mandatory. That's why I put optional, because one time I had my chair, he was saying that some students were complaining that I had too much stuff, and I was trying to explain to my chair, well, that's just optional. Like, I'm definitely giving that as a disclaimer, right? This is all optional. It's not mandatory. You don't have to go through all this. It's just extra information if you all need it, or if you all want to. Like, let's say you're bored at 3 a.m. and you want to learn about like the Federal Reserve, you can do that if you want to. I wish I had time to do that and read about stuff that I find interesting just that I find interesting, but unfortunately I got a lot of work to do. And I will be adding the other 2 units. There's a couple of other things I need to do with the quizzes. So in the interest of transparency, I am remember how I said that I'm redoing my lecture videos? So I'm also doing the same thing with my classes. I'm redoing my classes right now. So that's why I still need to make a few updates to the other units, but I should be almost done with them. So very soon you'll have access to the other units, so that way you can work ahead if you all want to. But just give me some time, because it's just been, because I'm having to redo the classes, and we couldn't start working on them until right before the semester started. So, but I'll get those done hopefully within the next couple of days here. So, okay, last thing that I want to talk about before we leave is I did want to talk about the signature assignment really quickly, the final project here. Now, again, I do have a lecture video that goes over this, so I'm basically going to say the same thing, but I do feel that it's important that we talk about it since we are here, and it is it's the item in the class that has the highest grade weight in terms of the individual assignments, because this is counting for 20% of your total grade. I believe it is. Is it 20%? Let me just double check. Yeah, signature assignment 20% in federal, and yeah, also Texas the same. Okay, yeah, so this is 20% of your grade. So if you don't do this, this could knock you down 2 letter grades. So this could knock you down from an A to a C if you don't do this, like if you don't turn it in. So it's extremely important that you all definitely do turn it in. Now, I like to call this like a research essay because it's not quite a research paper, but it's more but it's a little bit more stringent than an essay, so that's why I like to call it a research essay, so to speak. Now, I do have the rubric here as well as the actual description here, and if you're in Texas government, this is basically the same thing that you're going to be doing. It's just that you are going to be focusing on a state or local elected official. Okay. Let me see if I open this, if it shows up here. Let me see. Okay, no, that's my, sorry, that's my, that was my, this was my letter for Tammy U for my criminal justice doctorate. So let me, so this is taking a little bit longer, so sorry about that. Okay, there we go. Okay. Okay, so y'all can see this, right? Y'all can see the letter here, right? So again, I think some of y'all probably want to go home already. So we'll just kind of go through this really quickly here, and we can take some more time later to go over this more in greater detail if y'all would like. But basically, I wanted to go over what the final project is and what it entails, so that way y'all can have a sense of what it is and already start to kind of think about what it is you want to write about. Okay, so okay, and this is pretty much the same thing for Texas government as well. I'm sorry that I haven't been giving too much time for Texas, but again, the Texas government also has the same. In fact, let me open the Texas government one also, so that way we can kind of go back and forth here. Okay, let me go over to Texas government. As you can see, I usually tend, I tend to, I prefer teaching federal over Texas because, like I said, Texas is a little bit of a niche type of setup here. But let me go ahead and go to the signature assignment. Let me load the Texas one also, just so we can kind of be in the interest of fairness here. But you'll see that it's pretty much the same. Okay, so let's go to Texas, and then we'll go back and forth to these. So I'm sorry, we're almost done here. We won't take too long. Okay, so as you can see here, that both of these are letters of concerns, right? So it's basically a mock letter. What you're going to be doing is, well, let's kind of read this and then we'll go over it. So this assignment requires that you write in, actually, I need to put mock letter because you're not actually going to mail it. I mean, you can if you want to, okay? Because this is your First Amendment right to do so, to contact your elected officials. But I don't want Senator Cruz calling me and saying, "Why are you making your students send me letters and all that?" No, I'm not making you all do that. This is for academic purposes only. If you want to send it on your own accord as a private citizen, you can, but it's not mandatory to do that, right? That is outside, if you want to do, because I have no right to tell you not to do it, right? Because if it's something you wrote and you want to use it later for your own personal use, you totally can. But I do want to make that disclaimer that I'm not making you all do that. That's not part of the class. It's just a simulation. It's like pretending if you were doing this for real, right? You don't actually have to do it, but you can if you would like to, as a private citizen. Like I said, don't say that I made you all send it, because then Senator Cruz, Senator Porter might not like that, because but anyway, it is what it is. But the point is that like I said, so you're going to be simulating this, right? So in federal government, you're going to write this mock letter to any of the 2 U.S. congressional senators, which I just named them, representing Texas, or any U.S. congressional representatives representing Texas. So for federal government, I would recommend that if, let's say, you want to, so basically you're going to be writing to members of Congress that represent Texas. So either Senator Ted Cruz, Senator John Cornyn, or any member of the Texas House, any member of the U.S. House that represents Texas. Now, I do recommend that if you're going to write to your, to a U.S. House member, you don't have to do this, but I usually do recommend for you all to write to your own actual local U.S. House member that represents you. So if you live like in the McAllen, area, your congressperson is probably going to be Monica de la Cruz, or it could be Vicente Gonzalez, depending on where in McAllen you live. if you live like in Rio Grande City, then it's going to be Congressman Henry Cuellar. Again, you don't have to write to them, but if let's say you want to write about an issue that's local to your local community, then that is who you should write to, right? I know I've had some students write to Representative Jasmine Crockett over in the Dallas area. She's been in the news recently because of her comments against Marjorie Taylor Greene and all that stuff. So I've had some students write to her and all that stuff. So again, it depends on or maybe some of them have also written to Lloyd Doggett over there in the Austin area. There's all kinds of representatives that you could write to. Another one is Veronica Escobar over there in El Paso. So again, I've had students, because if they're writing to like Congresswoman Escobar, it's usually because of like a border issue or something like that. So usually it depends on also the issue that you're going to write. Okay, so to sum this up, that's what you're going to do for federal. Now in Texas, you're going to do the same thing, except that instead of a member of Congress, it's going to be to a state or local official. So this would be for federal for Texas government. This would be like if you wanted to write to a state legislative leader, elected Texas state senators or representatives. So this would be like State Senator Juan Chuy Hinojosa, or this could be Texas House Representative Terry Canales, if you live like in the Edinburgh area, or Representative Bobby Guerra over in McAllen, or Oscar Longoria over in La Jolla. So it would be those types. So for Texas, those are the type of people that you would write to. Or maybe, obviously, of course, I get, I see a lot of, for Governor Greg Abbott, right? Usually tends to be the most popular recipient of these letters for Texas because he's the governor, right? He's the most well-known state official in Texas. I also get some for Dan Patrick, Lieutenant Governor, Ken Paxton, the Attorney General. So usually it runs the gamut of like the state reps and the state senators, or the governor, lieutenant governor, and those people. Or it could also be a local elected official, such as I usually also get some letters for Richard Cortez, the current Hidalgo County judge. I'll get some, for mayors, and things like that, like Mayor Villalobos over in McAllen, right? I'll also get even for some local school board members as well, right? So it runs the gamut, right? So in Texas, you actually have more of a variety to choose from because it can be a state or local elected official, right? So just keep that in mind that you're going to be doing the same thing. You're going to be writing the mock letter, but depending on which of the classes, that's going to determine who you're going to be writing to. So again, the letter of concern will demonstrate your ability to effectively communicate by developing and writing an executive summary that identifies and integrates. Don't worry about the adjectives here. Just know that it's basically asking, the purpose of this letter here is to incorporate all of those student learning outcomes that we saw in the syllabus. How are you going to incorporate what you've learned in the class to the letter? That's basically the purpose of this final project, the signature sign, is for me to determine that you learned what you needed to learn within the class, right? So going back to the these over here, the course learning outcomes for federal, also for Texas over here, right? So all this, remember I said that this is what you need to learn within our class. The way you're going to demonstrate that, yes, through the quizzes and the assignments, but also through the final project here. Because as you're going to see here, the final project, that's what the student learning outcomes number 8, as well as the critical thinking skills, the social responsibility, personal responsibility that we looked at with the core objectives. That's what you're going to be able to determine, right? So what I would recommend for you all to do is, okay, well, let me rephrase again what you're going to do. So in this, of course, obviously the first step you're going to take is you're going to pick which elected official you're going to write to, depending on whether it's federal or Texas government. Then you're going to pick an issue that you are interested in writing about, right? Because that's what it says up here, right? You're going to write this mock letter, and it conveys your concerns about a national issue, or in Texas government, it's a state or local issue, right? So as you can see here, in Texas government, it conveys concerns about an issue, policy, or the political culture in the state of Texas, a county in Texas, or your local community in Texas, right? So So again, so make sure that depending on which class you're in, that you're adhering to the requirements of your. But again, they're pretty much the same. Just that you're going to be that in federal government it's going to be more of a national federal issue, and then in Texas government it's going to be a state or local issue. Okay. So like I said, you're gonna have to answer these questions, right? So like for Texas, you're gonna have to identify and analyze either the issue, policy, or the political culture of Texas, like we mentioned that. So what I would recommend for y'all to do is, depending on whether you're in Texas or federal, is print out or have available this document so that you can follow along and you can actually make sure that you answer the questions when you're writing the letter. So have this handy with you as you're writing it out. And demonstrate why this is a state or local issue and not a national issue. Now, don't let me take another drink of water. So let me kind of rephrase it. So I need to rephrase this question a little bit, because this is basically insinuating that a state or local issue cannot be a national issue when it can. We're having that discussion right now when it comes to border security in Texas. You know, we'll talk about how, I think some of you have seen in the news what's going on in Eagle Pass, right? That, you know, there's been some tension, and that's putting it lightly, between the state troopers and the border patrol, right? So is border security, is that a national issue, or is it also a state or local issue? Like, not even the governments can really decide on that. I mean, if we're going by the actual Constitution, Article 1, Section 8 does state that rule of naturalization is a Congress issue, right? However, then that brings up the question, well, what happens if a state that also has a international border, what if they don't agree with what the national government is doing? What if they don't feel the national government is doing an adequate enough job? Now, the Constitution doesn't say that, right? But it is a key question that needs to be asked, and that, of course, is where the courts come in, right? That's a perfect question to ask the Supreme Court what they feel about this issue, which is currently going on as of now. But the reason why I probably need to rephrase this question is because that's making the argument that a state or local issue is only a state or local issue, when in reality it can also be a national issue. So I guess for number 2 for this one, I would say, and this is for 2306, that maybe talk about why it's more a state or local issue and not as much a national issue. I guess that's probably a better way to say it. Explain how this is related to the origin and development of the Texas Constitution. So this also is the same thing over for federal government, right? It's going to talk about, again, it's asking about why it's more of a national issue and not as much a state issue. Explain how this issue is related to the origin and development of the U.S. Constitution. So you see how it's pretty similar? And then it goes in a little bit more detail, like it talks about the U.S. Bill of Rights here on the federal side. Explain how different people in our society may be affected by the specific issue. So here it's talking about some of the other key concepts like public opinion, interest groups, political parties, how they view this issue. So let's say if you did, since we are talking about immigration and border security, which are not quite the same thing, but they are very related. Let's kind of answer this a little bit, right? So let's say you did want to write about immigration. You know, maybe talk about how do the Democrats and the Republicans, they view immigration? How do certain interest groups like the ACLU, how they view it? How does the public view it? Maybe, and if you're talking about Texas, maybe talk about how does Texas view these issues. Let me go back to Blackboard here, because in Texas government, I do have some good resources that deal primarily with the state. So if you go to the additional resources, and also in the individual chapters, they also have this too. They have there's a link to the Texas Politics Project, where you can find polling. It's run by the every chapter has a link to it, I think. So the Texas Politics Project is, let me click on it really quickly here. Where is it? Right here. Okay. So the Texas Politics Project, this gives you some educational resources. You know, this can help you all, you know, as you're studying through, like, you know, in Texas government, but it also has polling here too. So if you are in Texas government and you want to write about one of these issues, they have some really good polling information. Look at this one, Crisis at the Border here. This gives you data that, you know, polling that's conducted by the Texas Politics Project, which is based out of UT Austin. This gives you data in terms of, I don't know why it's not letting me click on it. Let me see, maybe it's like this here. Oh, okay, there. This gives you data in terms of how people in Texas view this issue. and look how it breaks it down. It breaks it down by political parties. It also breaks it down by different ideologies. I think it also breaks it down by, like, I think there's also like educational attainment here. So there's a lot of different ways that this information can be broken down here. And of course, not a surprise that Republicans would be overwhelmingly in favor of this question where it says, do you think that the number of migrants attempting to cross the US-Mexico border is a crisis? So it's no surprise that a majority of Republicans are going to say yes, and a minority of Democrats are going to say no, right? Because the Democrats and Republicans are pretty divided on this issue. So that's really not all that surprising. But the reason why I wanted to show this to you all is that if you're going to write about like the immigration or border security issue, then the Texas Politics Project is a good way to find some of this data, particularly for people within Texas, right? I mean, you can also look up other stuff like CNN and other polls, but the Texas Politics Project is good because it discusses these issues, particularly when it comes to Texans and things like that, right? So again, just giving you all some good examples here. Identify the branch of government responsible for that policy issue, and if there is part of any other branch that could also be implicated in the matter. So if we're talking about immigration, you can talk about how that when we're looking at immigration policy, that it's a combination of mostly the legislative and the executive branch, because the legislative branch is responsible for passing the immigration law, and then the executive branch is responsible for enforcing that, or supposed to enforce that, right? That's why when you look at Border Patrol, Department of Homeland Security, Customs Border Protection, ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, all these different, they're federal agencies under the executive branch that are responsible for enforcing immigration law. But you can also make an argument that the courts are also involved too, not as much in terms of the everyday actions, but when you have cases involving immigration rights and, when what's going on with Texas and whether Texas can basically have their own border policy that is different from the federal government's border policy. Does Texas have the right to have their own border policy? Then that's where the federal courts can come in. So you can make an argument that all three of them get involved. Although, like I was saying, that the courts, not as much, but then that's the way the courts are in general, right? The courts aren't proactive. The courts are only going to get involved unless an issue is brought before them. Number 6, discuss your constitutional solutions. That's where you're going to come up with, how would your solution to the border security issue, what would you come up with as a solution? And you also have to make sure that it's an ethical strategy and that it's also constitutional. So let me give you a very outlandish example. So like, let's say you wanted to write about the gun issue in the United States. You can't just say, well, my solution to gun violence in the United States is to ban all guns. Some cities already tried that a couple of years ago, and that was struck down as being unconstitutional because obviously we have the Second Amendment that says you cannot do that, right? The Second Amendment does provide people with the right to carry firearms for their own personal protection. So you can't go and take that personal protection right away from people, right? You have to come up with a solution that is constitutional. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be a constitutional expert and know for sure 100% that it's constitutional, because even I have disagreements with the Supreme Court on things. But as long as you're able to make a logical argument for why you believe this is constitutional, then that's all I'm looking for. As long as it makes sense, you're able to back it up, that's totally fine. It doesn't have to be 100%, because like I said, even I disagree with the Supreme Court on some decisions. Okay, so then analyze how your action may take regarding this issue may impact the election process, and discuss how the congressional leader's stance on this issue might impact how you vote in the next election. So if you're writing to Senator Cruz, then this question is perfect because he is up for re-election this year, right? So yeah, you can talk about how, like, yeah, like depending on this issue, that might determine whether I decide to vote for you or not, and then conclude the letter why this is a right and responsibility to address this letter to your representative in Congress. Again, this one's very simple. You just mentioned how the First Amendment right to petition your government, redress grievances, that is an inherent right within our Constitution, that we have the right to contact our government officials and let them know, give feedback on the job that they're doing, right? And again, here, these databases give you some links in terms of how to find some sample letters. This also discusses how the letter is going to be organized. So again, it's supposed to look like a letter. So make sure that you have the proper date, the salutation, you put their address. The good thing about members of Congress is they have addresses in Washington and also in the states that they reside in. I know Senator Cruz lives in Houston, so he's got offices in Houston, I think in Dallas also, San Antonio, and Portland is originally from San Antonio. So, but again, all that information is online. You can definitely look that up. And then of course state the reason for your concern, which you can, that's why I suggest that if you're going to write to someone, I do suggest for you to be an actual constituent. Because if let's say Senator Cornyn is getting a letter from like Oregon, I mean, he's kind of going to be like, well, okay, but they're not a constituent, right? But if you are a constituent, then that's not a guarantee that they'll actually like read the letter, but you make a stronger case because you actually are a constituent. And so there is more of a likelihood that they would read your letter. Make sure that you fulfill the criteria list at the beginning. Make sure that you get to the point really quickly. Because kind of think of them as like Santa Claus. You know how like Santa Claus was, he gets all the letters from all the kids. He's got to, you got to make that letter quick, short, and quick, so that way he knows what it is, so that we can get to the next kid. Make sure to point out your relationship to the legislator, like example, you're the constituent. In the end, place your name. Again, you don't necessarily have to place your address or whatever. You can make a fake address or whatever. It's fine. That doesn't. Again, this is just for simulation purposes. 12-point Times New Roman single space because it's supposed to look like a letter. Minimum 1,000 words. I'm not going to really too much about the 1,100 words. I'm not going to be that strict on it, but just make sure that you focus more on the minimum words. Let me also say one more thing that I do recommend for y'all to do is you are going to need to research for this project. So that does mean that you are going to need some sources. It doesn't have to be a lot of sources. Normally, what I recommend is at least 2 sources. That should be enough to try to, because 1,000 words is usually about 1.5 pages, single spaced on a Word document. So that's, that's probably you probably need about 2 sources at the minimum to be able to come up with 1,000 words. I mean, if you have more sources, that's fine, but for sure, at least 2, maybe 3 to be on the safe side. I mean, if you want to include more, I've had students include more. The reason why I'm talking about the sources is that if you want to get a better grade, definitely put your work cited, put the sources, cite within the letter, and then that'll get you a better grade. Okay, so let's see. There's a chat here. Do you provide an example of past student who did this? I don't think I have, but maybe I can do that. I would just need to redact some information. So that's actually a pretty good idea. You're actually the first person that's ever asked that before. Yes, let me look at that. Let me see if I can find some past student work and maybe put that up as a sample, and then I could just redact some information. So yeah, no, that's actually a really good idea. I never thought of that before. That's brilliant. Yeah, let me go ahead and do that. Let me see if I can do that, and that way I can give you all like a sample, because I know that the database gives a sample of how to format it, but what you're asking is you want a sample of a past student and how well they did it. So yeah, no, that's a good idea. Let me look through some of the previous submissions from previous semesters, and I can see if I can upload. Like I said, as long as I redact some information, that should be fine. But okay, all right. So that's all right. So that pretty much sums up the final project. Again, the rest of it talks about the student learning outcomes and the core objectives. So again, like I said, I recommend for you all to have this handy for you all as you all are going through this. This is not going to be due till the end of the semester. I am going to have a rough draft that's going to be due, I think, in about 2 weeks. So that way, I want you all to already start thinking about who you want to write to and what topic you want to pick. So that way, because when I first started doing this, I had this one student, like it was due that Sunday, and they were like, "Sir, like, what is this? I don't know what this is." And I'm like, "Oh, goodness gracious!" So thankfully they turned in something, but it was, as you can tell, it wasn't very good because So that's why I have the rough draft, towards the middle of the semester, so that way students don't forget about this. So, okay, I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover here. We already went over the class layout. We went over how to do the discussions, the tests, the signature assignment, final project. We already went through that, the study guide. So I think we are good. Let me stop the share here really quickly. So I know a lot of people left, which is totally understandable. I did not think we were going to be here for like 2 hours, but we did cover a lot that we needed to cover. So with that being said, I guess the important thing I want to ask is, does the class make more sense now that we've kind of gone over some of this, like what we're looking for? What is it that the expectations I have when it comes to communication, when it comes to the class layout and where to find everything, and that I have the video lectures for you all, and I have extra resources, and that basically you just have to do a quiz per chapter, and then every unit has a discussion and a test. and the grade weights for them, which again, you can find that in the syllabus. Is there anything else in the syllabus we need to cover? Let me see. Because yeah, we didn't. Let me see. Let me see. I'm looking at the syllabus right now. I mean, everything else is just like the topic outline. Which again, you all can see that for yourself. I guess let me share that really quickly. Yeah, we can go over the topic outline. Let me share that. Okay. Oh yes, of course. No, you're welcome. I thank you for attending it. Yeah. So topic outline again. You can look at this up on the syllabus. Just know that again, every week we're gonna have to do we'll do a unit per week. And again, the first test is not going to be due until for federal, it's not going to be due until next week. And then for Texas, I think it's due this week only because of the fact there's 4 tests instead of 3. So yeah, for Texas, and that's fine because Texas has only 3 chapters, so that should be enough to be able to, to study for the test for this week. So yeah, so every week's going to have their exam. The reason why I have 4 and 5 is because it's kind of because we've got like 4th of July in there, so it kind of feels like it's kind of scrunched there. So I just figured it'd be just best just to include both weeks here. So again, just keep in mind that the final project is going to be due then as well, and the last exam is the final exam, and it's not cumulative. It's just going to be over the chapters here. So I think that's pretty much it. Again, you can read through like the class policies, and again, just you all know how to behave yourselves in class. It's totally fine. Okay, so that's pretty much it that I wanted to discuss. Oh, that one more thing. Yeah. So again, so for federal, make sure that again, it's the We the People book. That's the official one. But again, you can also use the the education resource one. For Texas government, remember I mentioned that you can only get this book in virtually in a so let me this is for the Texas government students. So I don't know if that applies to you all, but I'm gonna talk about it anyway because of the for students so they can watch later. So for Texas government, the way it works is you have to click into the Cengage folder. Okay. Oh no, okay. The Cengage folder, where is the Cengage folder? It's I think it's here under the Welcome to Texas government here. Let me see, because I'm going to take you out of the Cengage website. Let's see. No, it's not here. Let me go back over here. So I thought it was here. Okay, well, basically what you're supposed to do is, I think it's under essential course information. Sorry, I need to create like an extra link for that. Okay, so here's the hard copy, but I don't think it takes you to the Cengage website. Okay, well, basically what you're supposed to do is when you go to say, let me just type in Cengage myself. Just type in Cengage myself here. Hold on. As you can see, I'm very political. Look at all the political stuff here on the site here. Okay, so if you sign into Cengage, it'll take you to the website here. Okay. So you have to create an account in Cengage, and then it's going to, and then of course it's gonna, it shows, the courses that I have. Oh, something went wrong. Hold on. Okay, so here, of course, here are the courses that I have. So the way it works is, of course, you could type in the title here, right? Like Texas politics, and then find find the one, so find this one, and then it'll ask you like to access the ebook. So then you'd have to pay for it, and then once you're able to once you pay for it and you create the account and then you pay for it, then you should have access to it. And so the way the ebook works is like it's loading right here. You'll be able to access it this way, right? So it gives you all the chapters here, right? So this is the way that you're able to read through it. So the link that I have, or the what is it? Where is it here? The link that I have here, not sorry. or it's because it says that you are screen sharing, so that's why I can't see the tabs here. Let me make this a little bit bigger here, or let me try this. That way I can. As you can see, I'm not the best when it comes to technology. Let me go to the. Is it this one? I think it's this one. Okay. So if you go back to Texas government, you'll see that this is the key. So if you enter, so after you purchase the textbook, you're gonna have to enter this key in, so that way you can become part of the Texas government class, so that you can access the ebook then. So that's pretty much all I wanted to send you. I know I didn't do a good job of that because I'm not the best when it comes to all this textbook stuff. Again, if I was good at textbooks, I'd go work for these people. So I just know the content. I'm a content expert, but I'm not like a publisher. So it is what it is. But yeah, so anyway, so this is the textbook for Texas government, and you'll have to go into Cengage and create the account, pay for the book, and then key in that key that I have, and that way you can then get access to the book. Okay, let me go and stop the share here. So I think that's the last thing I wanted to cover. So okay, all right, so that's pretty much it. Anybody else have any? Okay, so it's just Nydia here. So do you have any questions? Or again, sorry that it took way too long. I did not think it was going to take this long, but I just wanted to get everything covered and out of the way here. You're welcome. Definitely. I'm glad that you were able to stop by and able to I'm glad that this meeting was very helpful, and we can schedule more if there's any other things that like you all really need to talk about, or anything you need clarification on. I'm definitely here to meet with you all. So okay, well, I guess if there's nothing else, I'll go ahead and stop we'll go ahead and end the meeting here. Good luck to you all. You all be safe. And one last thing, there are some yes. Like I said, the reason why is because I'm still, those assignments, I am still in the process of updating, because as I was mentioning earlier, that I'm redoing my overall class this summer. And the reason why I wanted to do it this summer is because there's no way, I don't have time in the fall or the spring to be updating my class like this. Since in the fall and spring I teach in person, there's just no way. I just don't have the time. So in the summer is when I have more time to kind of update my classes. So that's why they're not open, but they will be open within the next couple of days. So I'm almost done editing that, and so it should be okay. And like I said, I would have gotten to it earlier, but they don't let us work on our classes early because sometimes they move classes around. It's a thing that STC does. So anyway, but yes, but I'm still working on that, and I'll get those ready as soon as possible. So any other questions? Any other questions that I can help you with? And I will, and like I mentioned, because I think you mentioned about the pronto. So I will be working on that right now to see if I can get back on there, and then we'll see how we go from there. So, but okay, all right, then if there's no other questions, then thank you so much for stopping by, and good luck to you. Hopefully you'll do well this semester, with my class and other classes you might be taking. And please let me know if there's any other thing I can help you with. Thank you so much for stopping by, and have a good rest of your evening. I'm gonna go do my daily exercise right now at the park now that it's already nice. So okay, all right, well, you take care, be safe, and we'll see you later. Thank you.